The Gospels have a lot to say about Jesus healing people, but today we struggle to make sense of it all. Today, his healings are often interpreted as miracles that break the laws of nature. About 300 years ago, when modern science began to get going, this is long after the Bible had been written, intellectuals began to think that God runs the world regularly. And if they could observe and know the regularities, they would then be able to understand how the world works. And those regularities have come to be called the scientific laws of nature. So, as they developed this idea, they then asked the question, well, what about these stories in the Bible of things that seem to break the laws of nature? How did Jesus do his healings? And there was this great controversy. One side said, nobody can break the laws of nature, so the Bible is just plain wrong. And the other side said, but Jesus was divine, so he could break the laws of nature. Both sides were completely wrong. What the Gospels say when they say Jesus healed people is that what he did was a healing. It wasn't a miracle. They say Jesus was one of many healers. He was exceptionally good at it, but there were other people who did healing, and even Jesus himself sent out missionaries and said to them, look, you can do all these healings that I'm doing. Nobody needed special divine powers to be a good healer. So, question, what did healers do in those days, and why was Jesus so good at it? After the Second World War, medical teams went round the world introducing medical technology to third world countries. They thought people suffering from illnesses all over the world would welcome Western medical technology with open arms. But what they found was different. What they found was in one country after another, all over the world, the locals said, your modern medical technology is good for treating some illnesses, but for most illnesses, our traditional methods are better. So, the next batch of Westerners to go round the world were medical anthropologists. Try and understand why the rest of the world wasn't so keen. What they found was that traditional healing practices are quite similar all over the world and similar to the healings that Jesus did. If we find Jesus' healings odd, we are the odd ones out. There are three main differences. First, modern medicine looks at the individual. You may tell your doctor about stress at work and family problems, but your doctor's main priority is to focus on your body. Traditional healers don't know much at all about what is going on inside the body. They don't think of people as individuals. What they focus on is how the individual relates to the community. We are all part of each other, so illness in one person may express something about the community. The second difference is that modern society identifies us by what we do. For us, a healthy person is busy earning money. Everybody has to be busy. Traditional societies identify people by who they are, by their role in the community. The third difference is that modern society expects us all to be planning for the future. This is why we have so many insurance policies, bank accounts, and pensions. Traditional societies are more inclined to live in the present. Can I just check? Can you hear me all right? Yeah, okay. Right, so what the researchers found was that there are some illnesses which only modern medicine can cure. If you have appendicitis, you need that appendix taken out, and traditional healers can't do it. On the other hand, there are some illnesses which modern medicine can't do anything about, but traditional healers may be able to help with. Now, I guess every one of you has got a story along these lines. Might be wrong, but they are very common. Right? Mine is that I have ME. The National Health Service doesn't have a clue what all modern research into it, doesn't know what causes it or what to do about it. What does help is managing one's lifestyle, and that's precisely the kind of thing that traditional healers would have focused on. Right, now that was the context within which people thought of healing and within which Jesus did his healing. So, Jesus also did his healing within the context of Jewish theology. And official Jewish teaching said, if you were ill, that was because God was punishing you for a sin. So, to get better, you need God to forgive you. Instead of doctors, they had priests. You would go to the priests at the temple in Jerusalem and offer a sacrifice. After the sacrifice, the priest would pronounce that God was forgiving you. Then you were supposed to get better because you were forgiven. Last week I described how, because of high Roman taxes, a lot of people were suffering illnesses caused by malnutrition. So there was a huge amount of illness around. To make things worse, the journey to Jerusalem, to this temple where the priests would heal you, from where Jesus lived, about 100 miles. No trains. You might have a donkey, otherwise you walk. The Jewish tradition also stressed the need for purity. Animals offered in sacrifice had to be without blemish. And good humans had to be without blemish as well. So, the Jewish temple establishment had a particular dislike for unsightly skin conditions. The priests wouldn't have known whether you were contagious. Their job was to judge whether you were clean enough to be part of your village community. If you weren't, if they declared you unclean, you would be expelled from your village and you would have to join a leper colony. You can imagine how devastating that would have been. So, what did Jesus do? He told people who were ill that God accepted them as they were, forgave them for any sin, and didn't hold it against them. As for people with blotchy skin, he declared them clean without sending them to Jerusalem. He told them they were free to rejoin their village. He didn't even tell them to offer sacrifices. He blatantly rejected the whole system. Why? Well, Jesus had good Jewish reasons for doing what he did. Another part of the Jewish tradition was that one God has created the whole world and all the world's people as an act of blessing, to bless us. God has created each of us with our own unique personality, our strengths and weaknesses, each of us designed to live a healthy and happy life in our own unique way. It doesn't mean we all have to be the same. If I'm healthy and you're healthy, it doesn't mean our bodies are the same as each other or we do the same things. We have the variety, but for each of us there is such a thing as good health. We today have inherited this concept of good health. It means that if we are to live well and enjoy the blessing, we have to appreciate what our bodies and minds are like. We have to live within the limits and develop the potential of our own body. So we have this concept of good health as something to aim for and look after. It's fundamental to the National Health Service. If you're like me, you're forever being sent for another blood test. And as a result, oh dear, your cholesterol is too high, your blood pressure is too high, you need to lose weight, you need to, you know, you've heard it all, haven't you? That all depends on this concept that there is such a thing as good health for you. The concept comes from the kind of God Jesus believed in. And the ancient Romans in Jesus' time simply didn't have it. Secularists today sometimes reject it. Some postmodernists argue that there is no such thing as good health. Each of us we just are what our body is. So, if that's the case, if I want to smoke 40 a day and die of lung cancer, that's my choice. If I want a boob job, it's my body, I can choose. Actually, I don't want a boob job, but... But you get the idea. And some people are saying, well, I am responsible for my children, and if I want them to be circumcised, whether male or female, that's my decision. All this is quite logical if you believe in a different kind of God or no God at all. Now, if all this makes sense, and if I've described it, what Jesus was about, correctly, then we have all been created with the potential for good health, enabling a happy life. The biggest obstacles in Jesus' day were starvation caused by high Roman taxes and an exploitative healing system at the temple in Jerusalem. Today, we have different obstacles. So, here are some questions to reflect on. Do you think Jesus was right? What are the obstacles in our society today that stop us living healthy lives? And if we are to overcome these obstacles, what kinds of healing do we need today?